So please remember that I will be sharing both the things with you. One, obviously, would be the session recording. And number two, I will also be sharing the file with you that I prepared so that you can go back and look at what I did. If you want to copy and paste something, you can do that as well. All right. So let's start with an Excel file. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that Visual Basic is only meant for developers, for very advanced Excel users. What that means is that by default, when you guys open your Excel file, you will not see that you have an ability to operate on Visual Basic. You have to activate that feature. Whichever version of Excel you're working on, whether it is 2000, 2003, 6, 10, 13, 16, 19, Office 365, Microsoft 365 now, it doesn't matter. Visual Basic has been there in every single version of Excel because that fundamentally is the programming backbone of how Excel works, right? How do you activate it? I've just opened a blank Excel file. We click on File and then Options at the very end. And then you notice there's an option called Customize Ribbon. And on the right side, there is a Developer tab, this one. Now, by default, on all your computers, when MS Office is installed, the Developer tab is disabled. And there is a good reason for it because they say that this is only meant for developers, for very advanced users of Excel. 1 out of 1,000 people on Excel will ever work in their lifetime on Visual Basic. All the other 999 will not work. That's the reason they have disabled this feature. But it is as simple as clicking on this button. And when you press OK, this new tab will come called the Developer tab. Right? Now, I'm assuming that none of you would have seen this earlier because by default, it is always hidden. But you need to activate it in case you want to work with Visual Basic. Okay. Now, there are two terms that float out there. One is called Visual Basic, the other is called macros. And a lot of people get confused, and sometimes you will hear VBA, sometimes you will hear macros. And it's very important to understand what these terms are. Macros are a generic term, right? So if I can quickly open my browser, and you can see a macro is essentially an instruction that expands automatically into a set of instructions. For example, if I say start, what I mean to say is that you start, open the file, go to developer, enable it, put some numbers, write a formula. So basically one instruction is being used to perform a set of instructions. Essentially, we are grouping instructions together. That is what programming is, right? So rather than me telling you, you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, I can essentially say you do all the steps in one command. Macro is not something which is in Excel. Macro is a generic term, right? So whichever application or software you're working on, it will be called a macro there. For example, if you work on robotic process and automation, there also you have a macro. If you work on, let's say, JavaScript, there also you will have a macro, right? Or for example, if you're working on Python, there also you have macros, right? So please remember, macros simply is a fundamental generic term, which means that anytime you're trying to automate your tasks, you're using a macro. But when you're writing a macro in Excel or in Word, basically in MS Office, that is when it becomes Visual Basic, because Visual Basic is the language on which MS Office works, right? But for our understanding, these two terms are completely interchangeable. So if tomorrow somebody says, I wrote a VB code or a Visual Basic code, or somebody says I wrote a macro, it's exactly the same thing. There is no difference, okay? But you should understand that a macro is not something you do only on Excel. A macro is something you do on every single programming language. So we click on Visual Basic, and then this new window will open up. So this is called the IDE, which is the Integrated Development Environment, right? Again, this is a basic programming fundamental. It's called an Integrated Development Environment. It's nothing. It's just a software application that allows you to write a program. Like if I want to write a Visual Basic code in Excel, I can't directly do it on a sheet. It doesn't allow me to do that. To do that, I'll have to open my Visual Basic IDE. So it says Microsoft Visual Basic for Applications. So that's where the name comes from, VBA, which is Visual Basic for Applications. Now you notice that I can work on my Excel and my VB IDE at the same time. So if I press Alt Tab, I can see my Excel, and at the same time, I can see my Visual Basic window as well. So I can work on them parallelly or concurrently, right? Okay, let me first enable my formula bar. For some reason, it is hidden. Okay. If you notice, my book is called Book 5. The sheet is called Sheet 1, all right? The first thing I want to do is I want to save this Excel so that I can share it with you later. But by default, whenever you send an Excel file to somebody, it is in an Excel SX format, right? Or if you download it from a SAP or from Salesforce or from a software, especially financial data, typically it comes in an Excel S format. That is the old format. Both Excel S and Excel SX will not work, right? So Excel S and Excel SS, Excel X, Excel S, and then XL SX, right? Both of these do not support macros. You will need to have an Excel SN, right? Only this one supports a macro. This is very important. So when I save my file on my desktop, file and then save as, you notice I will not choose my first option, which says Excel workbook. I will choose my second one, which says macro enabled workbook. If you do not save it as a macro enabled workbook, then in an Excel SX file, all your macros will automatically get deleted. So this is mandatory. You don't have a choice here, right? You have to choose Excel SM. Other than the fact that an Excel SM can also save macros, there is no difference. So a normal Excel file and an Excel SM will work exactly the same way. They will look the same. They will perform the same. Every formula, every calculation will work the same. There is only one small difference. The difference is that an Excel SM can also have macros in it. So I'm just calling it session APR 29, right? So I've saved an Excel SM file. All right. Now we want to write our first piece of code and let's build a problem. Now, my problem here is that I want to automate a task. That means I want to write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from A1 to A5. All right. But I don't want to do this manually. What I want is that the system should ask me, Havish, what is the first number? What is the last number? And it should automatically write all these numbers for me so that I don't have to do it manually. See, if you do it manually, then you have to write 1, then you have to write 2, and then you have to select both, and then you have to drag it, right? If you only select 1 and then you drag it, then you only get 1. So this means it's a very irritating manual process and I want to automate it. So we'll keep it very simple. Let us first see how do we put a number inside a cell. So I want to put a number inside A1, right? So we come back to our code window. Now the program that I will be writing, it will come inside a module. Think of a module like a sheet. So like an Excel file can have multiple sheets in it. Similarly, a VB window can have multiple modules in it. Right now, if you notice, there is no module that I have. Do you see this? This is my workbook called APR 29. It says there is a sheet, obviously, and it says there is a workbook, obviously, because there's a workbook and my workbook has one sheet in it. But then where is the module? You have to create one. So I'll click on my workbook name and then insert a module, right? Remember, think of a module like a sheet. The only difference is that on an Excel sheet, you can write numbers and functions and formulas. On a module in VBA, you can write your own code. So you get this entire nice white window in which you can write a code. Now the code we need to write has to follow a certain syntax. And the syntax is called a subroutine. Okay. Very simple. A subroutine is nothing. It is a sequence of program instructions that performs a specific task packaged as a unit. Remember, this is the important part. It is not just one task that I'm performing. It is a number of tasks that I have all packaged as a unit so that I only have one subroutine, but that one subroutine will do a number of tasks for me. For example, that subroutine will not just write the number 1. It will also go through all the cells and then put numbers from 1 all the way till 5. All right. Okay. How do you write a subroutine? We say sub. So you're not supposed to write the entire word subroutine. You can just write sub. What is the name? We can give any name we want, but the name cannot have a space in it. So I will call this serial number. Remember, the reason I'm putting an underscore is because you can't put a space inside it. Okay, now how do you close the subroutine? You will put an open and close parentheses. And when I press enter, you notice that end subroutine will come automatically. For example, when you write an Excel formula and we say equal to if, and we close the parentheses, this is very similar to it. The difference is that a subroutine starts with a sub and it ends with a end sub. Now, what was my requirement? I want to put the number 1 in A1. Now, there are two ways of doing this, okay? So this is my first option. What have I done now? I've created a comment, right? So when we start a line with a apostrophe, it is a comment, right? And why do you write comments? You write comments because comments help you explain the code to users. Like if I don't put any comment, then the other person will not understand what I've done. Like you guys are going to learn VBA today and the next 3 days. What about the others who don't understand a VBA code? For them, you have to give some instructions, right? So a comment is just like an instruction. How do you put it? You just put a single apostrophe. And if you notice, the color becomes green, which means that it's a comment. Now, there are two ways of putting a value in A1. First, I can say range A1 dot value is equal to 1, like this, right? And the second option is, in fact, let's see first if the first option works or not. Now, how do you run this? Now, there are two ways of doing this, 2-3 different ways of doing this. One option is that you can click on this run button, which is the green arrow, which is F5, that's the shortcut. So if you notice when I press F5 and I go back to Excel, you notice the 1 would have come here. Same thing. If I come here and make it 10 and I press on this button, you notice the number 10 comes in, right? Now it's a little complicated and pay a lot of attention here. I'm putting my range inside double quotes, which we never do in Excel. In Excel, whenever we put something in double quote, it becomes a text value, right? But in programming, you have to put A1 in double quotes. If you don't put it in double quote, it will not work, right? So you notice when I press run, it says there is some problem. It says it doesn't understand what this line of code is doing. So this is not an option. This is something very, very important. And remember, in Excel, you don't put a double quote, but in VBA, you have to put a double quote. You don't have a choice. What is the other option of doing this? So I'll create a second option. And watch this. First, I will remove everything from here. And I will comment my first option so that the first option is not executed. And I can say, this is very different, okay? Watch this carefully. I'll say cells. Now, think of my entire Excel file as a grid of numbers. So for example, this is 1, 1. This is 2, 1. That means the second row in the first column. This is 2, 2. If I come to E5, this would be 5, 5, right? Which means it's the fifth row and the fifth column, like this. So the fifth row and the fifth column. So this would be 1, 1. So that means I can write, if you notice cells, what is the row index and what is the column index? So I can write 1, 1, which remember is the same thing as an A1. And then I say dot value is equal to 1. Nothing is there. But when I click on the run button, you notice we get 1 here. Now the question is, which one is better? Now there is no clear answer to this. See, both have their advantages. A1 is simpler for somebody to understand because they know what A1 is. Like if I ask you, what is the cell number for W5? How do you know what number W is? For that matter, how do you know what number is the column BU? It's very stupid, right? I don't know what is the column number for BU. But what is the advantage of using the number? The advantage is that both my numbers here are dynamic, which means I can use another formula or another code to manipulate these numbers. The problem with A1 is that this A1 is fixed. I can't change this A1 whenever I want. But this 1 and 1 can be changed whenever I want. And this is what I want to use now, right? So let's do it this way. I will say, for the first 5 cells, okay? For the first 5 cells, I need to have numbers from 1 to 5, right? So if I write it like a sentence, I will say, for the first 5 cells, put numbers from 1 to 5. Now, one option is I could have done this manually. I could have written cells 2, 1 is 2, and then write cells 3, but I hope you agree that this is stupid. I mean, if I had to do this, I could have done this on Excel as well. The reason I want to write a program is because I want to automate this task. I don't want to do this manually. So what we say is, look at this. It says for the first 5 cells, right? So I say for I. What is I? I is just a variable which is storing a number. I is equal to 1 to 5. That means I want Excel to first go to the first row, then to the second row, then to the third, then to the fourth, then to the fifth. What is I here? I is my row. That means rather than putting row number 1, I can put I here. That makes sense, right? So that means that Excel VBA is going to put I as the number 1, and then it will go to the first row and the first column. And what is the number we want? We want I, right? And then I say next I. So think of what we did. How the code will work is that, remember, it's not one command, it's actually 5 commands. The first one says, take the value 1, put it in I. Then you go to 1 comma 1 and put the value 1. And then I go to next I. That means now I make I 2. So then I will go to cell 2 comma 1 and then put 2. And then I'll keep on repeating this loop until and unless I put numbers in all the 5 cells. So let's see how this works. Now, one option I showed you of running a macro was to go to the VB window and press F5 or click on this green button. But you're not going to do this every single time, right? So we can click on developer, select macros, and there is a macro called serial number, the one that we created, and I can click on run here. And do you see what happened? I only performed one subroutine, but that one subroutine was actually unfolding. So there were 5 separate tasks inside that subroutine. So without me having to put 5 different numbers, VBA automatically went one by one and put all the 5 numbers. Now a lot of people get confused. They think that, oh, VBA is putting all the 5 numbers in one go. This is very important. VBA cannot, it did not, and it cannot put 5 numbers at the same time. That means the software doesn't have the capability of writing 5 numbers at the same time. It will also do it one after the other. What is the difference? For us to do it manually, it takes a lot of time. So when I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but when VBA does it, it happens so quickly that we feel that it happened in one go. So if you notice, if I make this 5 as, let's just say 50, right? I'll remove this, watch. Macros, serial number, run. You notice in one click, I get 1 to 50, right? So we'll take a small 1-minute pause here. Any questions? And please ask as many questions as you want to see. Day 2 and day 3 become easier because by then you get a familiarity with the topic. I know in the beginning, everything seems very new. So please take your time. There are no silly questions. Anything and everything that you want to ask, please feel free to ask me. So you can either put it on the chat window or you can unmute yourself. You have to ask questions. I'm not going to proceed until and unless you guys ask questions because, see, it will get more complicated after this, right? So whatever you don't understand, it's seeming a little odd, you feel it can be done in a different way, please ask.
Havish, Abhinav this side. I have a question.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. So I was just trying to ask you that in the first option that you stated, if you want to perform an array of numbers, say for example, we have to fill both row and columns. Say for example, you have to fill numbers from 1 to 50 in a row
Yeah.
column grid, right? So does this works? I mean, with the same concept, or I have
It will be
to
a very similar concept. So this is
have to
the answer
introduce
is
a J variable, I guess.
introduce a J variable. Absolutely.
Okay. And what if we deal with the first option? Is the first option valid in such case?
Like this one, A1?
The range A1, yeah.
No. See, the moment you put a range A1,
Mm-hmm.
then that A is not something that Excel will understand. How do you make A dynamic? How do you go from A to B to C?
Okay, yeah.
See, I can go from 1 to 2 to 3. That means from the first column to the second column to the third column. But then here, if you notice, even if I concatenate, right, even if I had separated all this with an and,
Right.
I could have only made one dynamic. I could not have kept a dynamic. That's the reason you have to use the cells alternative.
Cool. Fair enough. Thank you.
And okay, there's one more question. Let's see. For I, sure. Okay. So I'll take the first example we did. What is I? Think of it this way. I is nothing but it is equal to my row, right? The first thing I want is I want to go to the first row, which will be 1, 1, because I will start at 1. Then I will start as 2, and then 3 and 4 and 5. So in my first 1, 1, I'm putting 1. Then in 2, 1, I'm putting 2. So if you notice in my Excel, let me remove everything. What is this cell? This is nothing but cells 1, 1, right? And this is cells 2, 1, and this is cells 3, 1, which means if I make this 1, 2, and 3 as I could have cells I, 1, I, 1, and then I, 1. But then how does I become 1 and 2 and 3 at the same time? Because I have to say for I is equal to 1, 2, 3. That means I is actually taking 3 positions. I is 1, I is 2, and I is 3. Right? And why are we not changing the other one? Because this one, remember, is my column. Tell me, what do you think will happen if I make this 2? Now my values will not come in column A, it will come in column B. Watch. Macros, run, and you notice now it comes in column B. So see, the column number can also be chosen and the row can also be chosen. Let's take another example. Let's say for some reason, you wanted the value to start at A2, not at A1. Can anybody quickly tell me what do we need to change here? The question is, I don't want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to start on A1. I want it to start at A2. So what is the change that we need to make? It's a little tricky. Just think about it. I plus 1, which one? There are a lot of I's here. Where do I put that plus 1? Do I put a plus 1 in this one, or in this one? There are 3 I's I'm using, right? So you're absolutely right. We need to do I plus 1, but in which one? Which one of these I's? Absolutely. Now see, my next I will remain the same. My value will also remain the same, but I don't want to start on the first row. Remember, I want to take the number 1, but I want to add that number 1 in the second row. So I'll have to say plus 1. But again, think about what will happen. So when I go to developer and then run this macro again, it gives me, see, it leaves the first row and it starts from the second row. This is how you can customize the answer that you want, right? For example, to make it a little more improved, I could have said cells 1, 1 dot value is equal to serial number. And then I could have said the rest. So let me also change this back to my first column. So what are we doing now? Now the answer is a little better because it is not just running the macro and showing me the numbers. It is also saying serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So you see how little by little you can keep on improving your code. So I hope that was a little clearer. See, it will become more clear when we do a few more examples with the same premise. Now the problem is that I put the first number, which is 1, obviously because it's a serial number. But the problem is that the last number also has to be put by me manually. Now, if I have to write serial numbers from 1 to 50, will I have to come to the code window and change this number? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Ideally, what I want is that the user should be able to choose the stop number, not by going to the code window, but by clicking somewhere on the Excel file. Okay, so just watch this. I'm saying this is my stop number, right? And think about what we're doing. We want the user to write 5 here, and then this 5 will tell the macro where to stop. I'm not telling the macro where to stop inside my code. So what do we do? Rather than writing, so I'm just copying this code so that you can look at all the different codes that I'm preparing. Okay, this is my serial number with stop. And what is the change? I don't need all the comments, so I'll remove the comments here. I will say that this is not 5, this is range E2, right? So range E2 dot value. So what is the difference? Earlier, we were putting the stop number inside the code. Now I'm making the stop number dynamic. So if you notice, when let me just remove all this. Okay, so I'll run my macro, developer macros, and then serial number will stop. Just see what happens. Because this is 5, it will show me 1 to 5. But if I run the macro once again, where I have written 10 here, so macros, stop number, serial number will stop, it shows me 1 to 10. So see what we did, we have made the code a little better, where we are making the user decide what is the stop number that he or she wants. Right? So any question on this one? It's a slightly improved code compared to what we did earlier. Right? Now there's a bit of a problem. The problem is, this is not a good code. I'll tell you why. The user has chosen 1 to 10. What will happen if the user chooses 3? Anyone? So if I choose the number 3 and I run the code again, what will happen? Do you think the numbers from 4 to 10 will get deleted? Yes or no? What do you think? So I've already run a code from 1 to 10. If I run another code which says 1 to 3, do you think the numbers 4 to 10 will get deleted? They will not, because the numbers are already there on my cell, right? So what we need to do here is, I will need to have another line of code that will first delete whatever is already there, and then it will write the new macro, right? Which means I need to delete the first column. And how do we do this? We can simply say here, okay, so we say columns, because we want to select our column. We want to select the first column, and then we select the entire column, and then we say clear contents. So what are we doing? We are first deleting any existing serial numbers, right? And then second, putting new serial numbers like this. So I hope you understood what we did. Like if I run a code and there were already some numbers there, whatever numbers are there, how will that number 3 come on top of this? So first I'll have to remove this column and then put the macro. So I've already told you we can run a macro in 2 different ways. One is clicking on this button or pressing F5. The second option is to click on macros and then to run the macro. And the third option is to make a shape. So insert, shapes, and I just make a small rectangle. And this rectangle can act like a trigger. So I can right click on the rectangle, assign macro, and then which macro do we want to assign? This is the second macro that we wrote. Basically what we've done is we've created a hyperlink. So now this shape is not a shape, it has become a button. So if you notice, when I click on this button, it gives me 1 to 3. If I say 10, it gives me 1 to 10. But if I say 5, it shows me only 1 to 5. And this is how you start automating your tasks. Right? Any questions on this, anyone? I just wanted to see the code once again. And I hope you're able to see why this comment is very important, because without the comment, you might not understand what you did. Because see, codes are not written like this. Some of it you will write, but most of it you will either record automatically or you will copy from the internet. So it's very important to also learn what is happening. Otherwise, you might copy something, it works, but you don't know how it worked in the first place, right? Now, I also want to have some form of a notification that tells the user that, see, once you've run the macro, serial numbers have been entered from 1 to 5, something like that. So I can say, please watch. I can say, third, show a prompt to the user. So we can say message box, because we want to show a message box to the user. And we will say, you created serial numbers from, okay, now watch this carefully, from I to, what is the last number? Our last number is range E2 dot value. So to range E2 just a second. What are we doing? Think about it. We want to have a result that says you created serial numbers from 1 to 5. So look at the paths. I want to say you created serial numbers from, this is the first part. Okay. The second part is the starting number, which is I. The third part is 2. And the fourth part is the stop number. Right? So don't think of this as a one line of code. It is a line of code. Think of this as 4 pieces of a code that we are concatenating. And what will happen now, when I again come back and I, let's say, run 10, it says, it puts the numbers and it gives me a notification saying you created serial numbers from 11 to 10. Let me just see why that is not coming right. From, okay, from 1. The first number will be 1, obviously. Right? Okay, so it says you created serial numbers from 1 to 10, like this. See, all of this is beautification. You don't really need to do this. It's just that when you do something like this, the user experience becomes a lot better, right? Okay, now there's a bit of a problem. I'm doing some redundancy. If you notice, I'm writing range E2 dot value here, and I'm writing the same thing here as well. Don't you feel it's a little stupid that if you're writing the same words or the same cell multiple times, why are you copying and pasting it many times? Ideally, what we should do is we should say that stop num, which is my stop number, is equal to range E2 dot value. And what is my start num? My start num is equal to I, right? But what is I here, right? I doesn't mean anything, right? So I want this not to be I, because I doesn't really make a lot of sense. We can say start num to stop num. And do you see how much better the code looks now? We can say this is start num, and we don't need this +1 and all. We can remove this, and this becomes my stop num. So I'll give you time to look at the code, but I just wanted to see how nicely this works. Start num. Actually, we don't even need to define this. It can just be written like this. Okay, watch this. Does it make sense? So what is the first thing we did? We deleted any existing values that were there in column 1. What is the second thing we did? We made sure that we are putting the heading serial number. In fact, we'll keep this. So I'll make this +1. Then we are making sure that we are putting the values, the text serial number in A1. And after that, I'm saying that take the value from A2. What is the value? The value is 10, and I'm putting that as my stop number. Now I have both, right? I know that my starting number is 1 and it ends at 10. So look how clean this looks. Earlier it was 1 to 5, like this. Now I'm putting it as 1 to stop now, like this. Right? Okay, sure. So start num and stop num, remember everyone, these are just words. I could have written anything I want. I could have written something like this also. It doesn't matter. It's just a name that you're giving. It's like a nickname. You know, when you say that I'm calling my workbook my workbook, why do you call it my work? It's just a name that you're giving. So don't think you have to follow a pattern or anything. You could have written a stop num underscore 222 for all I care, right? Okay, what is the syntax of this last part? I will just break this into 4 lines, okay, so that you can understand it better. So I'll say and. Everybody, is it clearer now? I'm writing you created a serial number from Then I'm concatenating. What am I concatenating? I'm concatenating the number 1 because that's a starting number. Then another and, then I'm writing 2, and then another and I'm writing stop now. Any guesses what this underscore is doing? Like, if you notice, I put an underscore on all the lines except the last one. Can anybody guess what this is? Slightly tricky, but you should be able to think about it. The underscore allows you to break a line of code into multiple lines. So if you notice, I'm just writing it here. The underscore allows you to break a single line of code in multiple lines. See, earlier my code was looking like this. And do you notice it was looking very complicated? So how do I break it in multiple lines? Just watch. I am putting an underscore and then I press enter. Because if you just press enter like that, you will get an error. It says what is happening. You can't break a piece of code into 2 lines, right? How do you break it into 2 lines? You put an underscore. So just to explain once, VBA underscore. So a space followed by an underscore tells VBA that the current statement is continuing on the other line. So if you notice, this is 1 line of code. You don't need to read it. I'm just giving an example. It's a very long line, no? So what do? I just break it into 2 parts, into 2 different lines. And how did I do that? By putting a space and an underscore. It's just a syntax, okay? It doesn't mean anything. You just have to remember this part. See, anything that is a double quote is a text, guys. Remember, this is a text, right? You have created a serial number. Now, this part 2 is also a text, but stop number is not text. See, what do you think will happen if I put stop num in text? You know what my result will look like? My result will, sorry. My result is going to look like this. You have created serial numbers from 1 to stop num. Stop num is not a text. Stop num is a variable in which I'm storing a number. And what number am I storing? Range e2 dot value. That is why it has to be without a text. See, VBA does seem in the beginning, you know, it's like I'm throwing so many different topics at you, and it seems, oh my God, it's getting so complicated and there are so many things happening. But you need to have some bit of patience. And I assure you that by the end of the 3rd day, for that matter, even at the end of today's session, you will start to get more comfortable with it. So don't worry. A lot of people feel, oh, I need to understand this 100%. It's a very, very big mistake if you make that. One should never learn any programming language thinking that I need to learn it 100%. If you try to do that, you will never learn anything, believe you me. If you feel you're understanding 10, 15, 20, 25%, that's a good percentage. And if you feel that once you practice it, your learning has gone up to 50%, that's even better. But don't be too hard on yourself, okay? If you find something complicated, remember, till you guys don't go back and try to type all of this on your own, it will not really make much sense. You know, you have to get your hands dirty. But because I come from a non-programming background for everybody's information, so I've never done any programming in my life. I started working with Visual Basic in 2015, and it was very, very, very difficult. I think it probably took me 1.5, 2 years to get comfortable with beginner concepts, right? I did not know what a loop is, what is an I, what is a subroutine, what is a module, what is an underscore, what is a comment. Of course, I had no clue about any of these things. So it was very difficult. But the idea is that I was learning on my own, which was the hard way of doing it, right? The idea is that whatever I'm teaching you now, it must have taken me many months to get the hang of it because I was doing everything by reading books. That's the advantage of coming for a session, you know, where you can ask your questions, the recording is shared, you can practice on your own as well. So don't worry if you don't understand it 100%. It will become clearer the more you practice with it. So let's do something else. One final example with serial numbers, and then we'll shift to a different example. I don't like this. I don't like the fact that the number has to be put in a cell. What I want is that the number should come inside an input box. Do you see this? When I press Control F, what is this, everyone? This is the input box, right? If I press Control G, it is an input box, which means that I can type something in here. This is what I want to create. So what do I want? I want the user to click on a button. When he clicks on the button, a box will open up, and the box will say, please enter your stop number. The user will choose the stop number, and that stop number will become the final stop number inside my code. So this will be my serial number with input box. Okay, very similar to the previous one. First, I'll create an input box and I'll save it in stop num. So I say, please type your stop number. What do you think will happen? If I run this code, serial number with input box, let's not do anything else. Let's just look at this. It says, open an input box in which it is a question is written, please type your stop number. In fact, I'll just put a semicolon here as well. Let's reassign this shape. So assign macro and then input box. See what happens. When a user will click on this button, it will open an input box saying, Microsoft Excel, please type your stop number, right? And then I can put in a number, let's say 10. But when I press enter, what is happening with that number? Nothing is happening. Because remember, this number will now become my stop number. So I can say for I is equal to 1 because our serial number started 1. And where does it end? Earlier we were writing 10. Now I will write stop num. That means the value that the user is choosing in the input box is going to get saved in stop num. And that stop num becomes my stop number now. So I can say same thing as earlier, cells I, comma 1 dot value is equal to I, and then I say next I. Just see how much cleaner this is, no? Compared to this code that we did originally, where we were putting I is equal to 1 to 5, and this one where we were putting the value in a cell. Look how much better this one looks. How will it work? Watch. Let me remove everything. I click on the shape. It says please enter your stop number. I say 10. Enter. Gives me 1 to 10. Again click. If I say 15, it gives me 1 to 50. It's a much improved user experience, right? The only thing I need to do is I need to copy this code, which will delete any existing number, right? And that's it. It works beautifully. Just watch. Click 5, you get 5 serial numbers. Click 33, you get 33 serial numbers. All right. Now let's look at it from a financial angle. Now the problem is that in finance, you want to write serial numbers all the time. But how do you know that you want to write the serial numbers always in column 1? Maybe not. Remember, maybe you want to write the serial numbers in column 2 or maybe in column 3. How do you decide that? So I will put another number saying choose call, which is nothing but another input box, right? And I can say here, please choose column number. So what will happen? This one, which was earlier always my first column, which is column A, right now is not my first column all the time. It will become choose call. That means now the user can decide 2 things. Number 1, he can decide what is the stop number. Number 2, he can also decide in which column he wants the results, right? So how does it work now? If you notice, I click, it says, please choose your stop number. It is 10. Then it says, okay, please choose your column number. Let's say I say 3. Now you notice my numbers come in, hold on, let me just check once. Okay, it was 1. I am not sure what the problem is. Do you mind if I just try this once? It might be a problem with the text and the number. It should work now. Let's see once. Yeah, it's working. So there's a bit of a problem. What happens is that if the user chooses choose call, the problem is that Excel thinks that, the number 3 that we wrote is a text value. So it tries to put a text value inside my column, which means, when you write apostrophe 3 in finance, it is like a purchase order number. How do you write a purchase order number? If it is 10051, you will not write it like this, no, you will write it with an apostrophe because it becomes a text. But if you write the sales, you will write sales without an apostrophe. That means it comes as, let's say, 1000. So this is what is happening. It is thinking that the number I gave is a text value. So there are a couple of ways to fix it. The simple one would be to simply multiply it by 1. And now see how smart this is, right? This means that I can actually choose which column I want the result in, right? So, we call all of this refactoring. There is a term for this. See, in programming, there is a term for everything, okay? So this is called refactoring. What does it say? It says that it is a disciplined technique for restructuring an existing body of code to alter its internal structure without changing its external behavior. That means in all my macros that we wrote, did you notice that we were getting the same result every single time? When we put the number manually, when we put the number in a cell, when we put the number in an input box. But what did we keep on doing? We kept on changing, we kept on restructuring the existing code, altering it so that the result, the external behavior is same, but we kept on improving the internal behavior, right? So this is very important in programming, which is called code refactoring, right? And why do you do this? Because you want to improve the design structure and the implementation of the software. So is it mandatory? Absolutely not. It is completely up to you, but it is always recommended that you do refactoring. So finally, we can also put one more serial number where we say that both the start and the stop number are chosen by the user, okay? So serial number with input box for start and stop, right? Watch this. This is my stop number. This is my start number. Obviously, my start number should come first. So I'll put this above. And then we say for I is equal to not 1. Remember, it will be start num. Okay. That means that the user, you're not assuming that the serial number is starting at 1. What if you want to start it at 15 and go up till 25, for example? So I can start at 15, I can end at 25. But my value should always come in the first cell, remember? So what is my cells here? Think about it. Guys, it making sense. If I want numbers from 10 to 25, the user can choose 10, he can choose 25. Fair enough, he will get 10, 11, 12, 13 till 25. But the value should come in the first cell, no? It should come in 1, 1 only. So right now what is happening is that this I will also become 10. Let me first show you how it works, then you will understand the problem. I'm assigning another macro, which is my start and stop. Let me put 3 and 5. Let's see what happens. Start number is 3, end number is 5. The problem is 3 is not just my starting number. 3 will also become my starting cell. But I don't like that. I want my first number to start at A1, right? So how do you think we fix this? Little difficult. Think about it. Sure, we can define the first cell, but tell me in a little more detail, how do you think we will do this? Okay, so this will be a little different than what we did earlier, right? I also haven't done this earlier. Let me see if I can do this correctly. Now I know that my starting cell is not 1, 1. This we all know because it's not A1, right? Oh, sorry, it's not 10, 1 because my starting number could be any number. So somehow I need to get a number 1 here, everyone, and then it will become 2 and then it will become 3. So why don't we do one thing? We can say that rather than writing 1, we can say this is J, okay? And what do we do after that? We say J is equal to 1. But this means what will happen, that all the numbers from 10 to 25 will come in 1, 1 itself. So I want J to increase as well every single time, right? So if I say here, J is equal to J plus 1. Let me just make it a lowercase j. And I think it should be okay now. Let me just quickly check this. I know it's a little complicated, but it's a good example for practice, okay? So we say 3 and we say 5, and we get 5. Get it in the same cell. So what we can do is, you guys also think, I'll also think it's a good problem that we have. So, acha, theek hai. Understood. Work now. 3 and 5, and we get 3, 4, 5. Okay. If I say 10 and let's say 15, I get 10 to 15. Look at the code and think about it. What we're doing is, my first number is 10. Where do I want to put it? In 1, 1. Remember, in cell A1, which is 1, 1. How do we do this? I've already defined that J is 1. Fair enough. But after that, we also want to say that in the next number, which is 11, it should be 2, 1. So I'm incrementing J by 1. That means I'm saying that J is equal to J plus 1, which means J is equal to 1 plus 1, which is J is equal to 2. So what happens is that the next number comes in 2, 1, the next number comes in 3, 1. Right? So just think about this for a moment. Not very difficult, a little different than earlier, but I hope you're able to see why we are doing this, because you can't assume that the serial number will always start at 1, right? And that is what we're doing. We're giving the user the ability of choosing the start and the stop number, but the results will always come from A1 till the cell that we want. Right? Any questions, anyone? So what I'm going to do is I will open a financial file, and I don't know what this is. We don't need this. Just save the file. And I show you how practically we use this, okay? Just watch. So this is, and we also take a small break after this. Power BI, and then DAX, and where's my file? Give me a second. Power Query. I can't seem to remember where the file is, but I'm confident I'll find it. Hold on. So case studies. This is not the one. Mismatched names is also different. Let me think. Is it on my desktop? Yeah, I found it. Okay. So it's a nice financial data set. We have, what is it about is not important. Just look at the headings. We have segment, country, product, discount band, units sold, so on and so forth, right? And we will continue working on this example in the next few days. What I want to show you is, imagine you wanted to write serial numbers, a small bit of automation. Now, how do you know your number is starting at 1? Let me just change this to numbers as well. You know that your cell is starting at A2, which is great. You know that the first number is 1. How do you know that the last number is 700 in this case? Very tricky, Think about it. This means that you will have to go to the file and find out which is the last row in your worksheet, and that becomes the stop number for you. But now every time you get a new data set from SAP, this means that you have to again and again keep on doing this. So I need a way of somehow finding out what is the last row of my worksheet. For example, if my last row is 701, that means that my stop number will become 700, obviously, because I want to leave out the headache. Now let's see, how do we search a code on the internet? What do we need to find? We need to find the last row, which is 701. Whenever you're searching for a code online, there are three magic words that you use. It is called VBA code 2. So what do we need to search for? You just start writing VBA code 2, and then you can search for what you want. What do I want? Find last row. And you notice there are lots of examples available here. I'll just open the first one. And it's a very small line of code. It says that if you want to find, do you see this problem? If you want to find the last piece of value, you can just write this. What does it do? It finds the last non-blank cell in column A1. Where do we need to find it? We need to find it in B, but obviously we can change this 1 to 2. So I'll just copy this, come back to my financial example file. Okay, just follow the steps and ask me if there's any problem. We go to the VB window. Now, we are not working in our April 2029 file, remember? We're working in our financial sample file. First thing, I will insert a module. We will call this sub serial number. Think, this is the code. I know this is something I want. We can now combine it with what we wrote earlier. So I'll say that for I is equal to 1, 2. Now remember, we don't know what the 2 is, so we can simply find the L row value and put that last row value in L row. So what is my L row going to be? Let's first see, is this working or not, okay? Serial number, remember? So if I run my macro and I say serial number, what does it give me as an answer? It gives me nothing, because I have to show a message box as well. So we just make a message box L row so that it tells me what the result is. So macros, and then I say serial number, run. So notice it tells me 2. Why is it 2? Because we're checking for the last row in column A, but I don't want column A, I want column B. So if I change this 1 to 2, see how smart this is. Now it will tell me macros and then serial number. It tells me that 701 is the last row. Remember, earlier you would have done this manually. Imagine you have 10 sheets and you have to do this one by one on all the sheets. It's so irritating, no? Now you can use a macro to do this, but we don't want 701 because the heading is the first row, so we only want is 700. So we will say that our value is L row minus 1, because from 1 to 700. And in which cells should these numbers come? It should be cells, remember, not 1, 1. It should be 2, 1. So I'll say I plus 1, 1, and then dot value is equal to I, and then next line. So let's understand the process before I run it. The first thing, I go to my financial file, I see how many values are there in the column B. So it tells me there are 701 rows. But my serial numbers that I want is only from 1 to 700. So I do a L row minus 1. This becomes my stop number. And where are we putting these numbers from 1 to 700? In I plus 1. I plus 1 is what? Nothing but my second row and my first column, right? Let's see if it works or not. So let me remove this. Now, without me knowing how many rows are there in my data set, I can just click on developer macro serial number, click on run. And you notice with confidence, you know that it will only give you 700 numbers. Right? That is how whenever you get financial data sets, which are already in a very clean format, and you want to see right now, you might be wondering, what is the big deal? I could have written 1 and 2 and dragged it. What if I ask you have to do this 15 times a day? What if I ask you that you can't make any mistakes? What if I ask you that you have to do this with multiple sheets at the same time? That is where the macro starts to help, right? So I hope this made sense as well. And now we also did a little bit of searching on the internet, which we'll do more of when we come back. But I hope you're able to see how very quickly, like a lot of people say, oh, Havish, how do I remember this? How do I learn it? And I tell them, what is a big deal? You just can Google it. As long as you know how to Google it, where to find it, and how to copy and paste it, you're sorted. Right? So we'll take a break, but any questions on this, anyone? So this became a little more practical now because I just did not do a dummy example. I showed you how on an actual file you can automate tasks. Okay? Just think about what we've done. It's a very simple piece of code.
Avish, Abhinav this
Yep.
side. Yeah. So as you told that we have to say, for example, we have to run this through across 15 or 16 sheets at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
So we'll have to insert module again and again for the other sheets.
No, absolutely not. See, guys, how did I write a number in all the cells by running a loop, a for loop? Similarly,
Yeah.
I'll have to have a for loop for the sheets as well.
Sheets. Okay. Okay.
I need to do that.
Okay. Can you also explain that how
the sheets
to be done? Yeah.
I will cover that in the third session, but I'll just give you an idea how it will look. So whenever I say cells, I can also write, if you watch, I can write sheets, and then it asks me the sheet number. So I can say 1, which is my first sheet. Okay. And then dot, and I can put like this. Sorry, I can just say select. So that means I'm selecting the first sheet, everyone, and I'm writing this code. So this can also be in a loop, no? So when I'm saying select the first sheet, I can say from 1 to 10. So it will go to the first sheet, run the codes, go to the second sheet, run the code, go to the third sheet and run the code like this. It's very simple. It's not complicated. So just, let me give you an example. Hold on. It's a little tricky. So I wanted to save this for the third day, but
yeah. So okay, we can do it on the third day itself.
Just remind me. We'll do it on the third day.
Sure. Thank you.
But the fundamental is the same. You have to run a loop for the sheets aspect.
Okay.
Excellent. Priya, Shrey, Vineet, Yukta. I hope it's become a little clearer now, especially when you see some real data, how practical this is and how much time it can save you. And if you guys are thinking, oh my God, what did we save? We just saved 5 seconds. No, it's not just 5 seconds. Remember, this is an immense amount of benefit to an organization because look at the amount of time that you're spending doing these things manually. Right? And that is why automation is required. Okay? So think about what we've done. If you have any questions, put it on the chat window. It's 7:10. Let's join in 10 minutes. We'll start at 7:20. We can always stretch the session by 10, 20 minutes if required. Right? So I'll see you sharp at 7:20. Right? So any questions, anyone that you could think of in the last 10 minutes? Okay, can we start? Is everybody back? Thanks, Abhinav. Shrey, Vineet, Yukta, Priya, are you back? Okay, thanks, Priya. Thanks, Yukta, Vineet. Excellent. For a change, let's do something else. So I'm going to close this financial example. We'll come back to it later. Let me not save this. And here is my question for you. On Excel, when we create multiple sheets, so I'm just creating 5 sheets. If you want to hide multiple sheets at the same time, you can do that. You can just select all the sheets except one, right click, and then hide it, okay? But if you want to unhide all those sheets, you have to do it one at a time, which means that when you right click and unhide, you're only allowed to unhide one sheet at a time. Now, when there are only 4 sheets, it's okay. But when you have 150 sheets, then it's a big problem, especially with financial dashboards, because you might have a number of people who are preparing those Excel sheets. So we need to find a way in which we can automate this task, which means we want to unhide all the sheets one by one. But remember, we need a loop for this. And then I'll also tell you how we can copy this code from the internet. This code is already available on the internet. But I first want to write it so that you understand it, and then I'll tell you how to copy it from the internet. Okay, let's see how this works. So I'll create another module. So just like Excel doesn't have a limit on the number of sheets you can create, similarly, there is no limit on the number of modules that you want. You can create as many modules as you want. And all of these codes and modules are saved along with the Excel file. So I'll call this sub and then say unhide my, or let's say all sheets, right? So what do we want? See, the first thing we want to do is to find out how many sheets are there in the workbook and then go to every sheet one by one and then unhide it, right? So the first thing I'll do is I will declare my type of variable. That means I will declare that there is a term called WKS, which is any term that you want. So I'm saying div WKS as a worksheet. Remember that WKS is just a name that you're given. I could have written WKSS, I could have written I, it doesn't matter, right? I'm just writing WKS because I'm declaring that WKS is not a number, it's not an integer, it's not a date. It is a type of element which is a worksheet. And then I say for WKS. Remember earlier we were saying for I is equal to 1, 2. Now I say for WKS is equal to. Now think what we'll write. We somehow need to find out how many worksheets we have inside the workbook, right? So what we need to do here is we will say for each worksheet in my current workbook. That means for each. So not like this because it's not a number. So I say for each worksheet in application.worksheets, right? So I hope it is clear. We are saying how many worksheets do we have in our workbook? It's a number, 5, 10, 15, 150, whatever number. And then I want to go to every one of those worksheets one by one. And then what do I want to do? WKS.visible. That means I want to change the visibility level to Excel sheet visible. That means I want to go to the first worksheet, make it visible, go to the second one, make it visible, go to the third one, make it visible. And then I simply say next WKS. It's very, very similar to how we had done the for I is equal to 1 to 10. That was a little different because we were writing I is equal to 1 to 10 because it was a number. Now WKS is not a number, it is a type. It's a worksheet. Hence you have to use for each, right? How does it work? Very simple. If I come back to my workbook and I run my macro called unhide all sheets, just see what happens. In one click, run, it will unhide all my sheets, which means that even if you had, just to give an example, let's say you had about 50 sheets with you, okay? Which were hidden. Imagine the amount of time it would have taken you, but now I can click on developer, macros, and then click on unhide all sheets, and in one click, it unhides all our worksheets. Now the question is, do you have to learn how to write all of this? No, you need to understand it, but you don't need to learn how to write it. You don't have to memorize it basically. Why? Because these codes are available online, right? Let me just first delete all my other sheets because otherwise it will complicate things for us. Like I told you earlier, you can simply type VBA code 2. What do we want? We want to unhide all sheets, right? And I notice there are a number of links available. I just open one of these links And if you notice, the same code that I wrote for you is also available here. Very cool, right? So what does the code do? Exactly what I showed you. It's the same code, and we can just copy and paste it inside my Excel workbook. Now, remember I told you there is refactoring, which means that you can improve the code. So what they've done on the website is that they've said, what if we want to unhide the sheets, but you also want to show a count of how many hidden sheets were there? Like now it will show a message box saying 4 worksheets have been unhidden. Watch. So it's a little different than earlier. It says WKS's worksheet. Okay, I don't need to try this one because we already know how it works. Just see the difference. It says count is an integer. My count is 0. Why? Because I don't know if there was even one sheet that was hidden or not. Then I say for each worksheet in active workbook.worksheets, worksheet.visible is equal to Excel sheet visible, and count is equal to count plus 1. That means every time a hidden worksheet is becoming visible, it's like, you know, in a mall when you have the step counter, somebody keeps on adding 1. So 1 plus 1 plus 1. The number of sheets in the beginning was 0, which were unhidden, and I keep on adding 1 by 1 by 1. And then finally, if the count is greater than 0, then we say message box count and how many sheets have been unhidden. If there was nothing which was unhidden, it says no hidden worksheets have been found. You can try this on your own. Like I'm just giving an example of how you can take a basic code, like this is the basic code, and you can keep on improving and adding more elements to it. Like if you look at the next one, it says unhide multiple sheets that I select, which means that I can choose whether I want to unhide a sheet or not. How cool is that? So this is the code, right? Here there will be if you notice, there is a message box with an option. So it is asking me that, Havish, do you want to unhide it or not? So I can choose whether I want to unhide it or not. Similarly, you have another code which says with a specific word in the sheet name. So imagine, this again is a financial bliss. I mean, this is so useful. Sometimes what happens is you have a number of sheets. It is called sales north. This one is called sales south, right? And this is called target north. And I'll just make one more and I'll call this target south. Now, the problem is that if I hide all these 4 sheets and somebody says only unhide the sheets that have the sales in it, not the target. The problem is that you don't know how many sheets have been hidden. Some of them are the sales and some of them are the target. So what we can do here is we can actually copy this code. I just copy and paste this. Just watch. Control C. And then Control V. It's very, very interesting code. I click on macros. I say unhide sheets that contain a specific word. So I say run. Now it says no hidden worksheets with a specified name have been found. Why? Because I haven't put in the name here. But if I go to my code window, you notice it is searching for a name, which is, let me also see, I haven't seen this code earlier. Okay, do you see this report? It says that whenever a worksheet has a name called report, but we don't want to have the name called report, so we want to create an input box. So input box, and we say, please enter the word that should be there in the sheet name, right? Like this. And we can save this in sheets to unhide, just name that I'm giving is equal to. This can be copied and I'm putting this inside this. And I think I've done everything correctly. Let's see. Okay, so I click on developer and then on macros and I say unhide sheets that contain a word. So it says, okay, what is a word that should be there in the sheet? I say the word should be called sales. And when I press OK, did you see what it did? It said that 2 worksheets have been unhidden and it only unhid the 2 sheets which have sales in them and not the ones that are, like, you know, when you prepare financial dashboards, you have 50, 100 sheets. The problem is that you've hidden everything. Suddenly you want to unhide only business unit 1 or only north. Now the problem is, how do you know which one is north and how do you know which one is south? You can't unhide all of them, right? That is where a code like this will help. Again, like I said, you can go back and see the code. There's only one small addition here which uses this in str, which is an in string that allows you to look at the word that we are given as a part of the sheet. And see, this is how you should learn, everyone. Like you don't know what INSTR is, you copy it, you go online, and then you say VBA INSTR, and it tells you that what is INSTR. Right? So that is how very smartly you can learn a little bit at a time. If you want to know what is the complete list of objects that are available in VBA, like for example, if I ask you how many functions are there on Excel, how do you do that? You click on formulas, you click on insert function, and you notice there is a list of all the functions that are available. So if you notice, these are all the different functions available in Excel. So many of them, right? If I say web, encode, filter, web service. If I say database, then I have different database functions. Similarly, if I ask you how many different objects are there in VBA, how do you do that? You can click on the small button here, this one. The shortcut is F2. It's called the object browser, and it will show you a list of, and this is a very large list. It has thousands of different objects in it, but you can see how many different elements are there in Visual Basic. Like worksheet is something, workbook is something, fill is something, color is something, right? Like this, there are different classes available, right? And you can go through all of these. I mean, you're not supposed to learn all of it. It's just there for reference in case you want to quickly go and check something. For example, if I want to go to workbook, see in workbook, it says application, open database, parent, close, count, and so on and so forth. Right? So if we close this, right? So I hope you were able to see how we can get these codes for free, easily available on the internet. And like this, there are thousands, not even hundreds. There are thousands of codes available. You know what the problem is? The problem is you still need to learn the code. Why? Because if you don't understand the code, what will happen is, let's say you got this code from the internet. But remember, this word called report will still have to be changed. In fact, they've written it. They've said, to unhide worksheets whose names contain some other word, replace report in the following code with your own text. What did I do? I went one step further. Rather than changing that name in the code, I actually created an input box like this, right? So that the user can every time choose the word that he wants without having to bother to go to the code again and again, right? So any questions, anyone so far? Anyone, any questions? And how do you practice these codes? Very simple. You type VBA 100. And there is a website called Excel Champs, which gives you a list of 100 codes that you can simply copy and paste. Okay. So very simple. You can just go through this website and you notice there are these like serial number, the one that we did, that is there. Insert multiple columns, insert multiple rows, so on and so forth. Okay. So different codes available. You can just copy and paste it in your own Excel workbook and then run it and then also learn from it. For example, how do you unmerge cells? Very simple. You say selection.unmerge. How do you remove text wrap? You can say cells.select, which is the same as Control A, and then you do cells.entire row .autofit. So I'm sorry. Actually, I think he's written it incorrectly. So this is an autofit. This is not a wrap. Anyway, I think he has mistakenly copied the same code. Okay. And like this, there are different codes available. Let's do a slightly more complicated one. Maybe you want to create a list of all the different sheets that you have as an index. So imagine I have 20 sheets with me, and I want to create an index with sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a hyperlink for every sheet. Imagine how difficult it is. I'll have to write table of contents, then I'll have to write sales north, then I'll have to write sales south, and then one by one, I will have to create a hyperlink, right? Which is right click, then I click on link, then I select insert link. After that, I select place in this document, I select sales north, and then finally, After all this effort, I get one feeble link like this. What if you have 100 sheets and you want to create a link like this for every single sheet? Let's see if I can search a code for this. Very simple. We say VBA code to create table of contents. Right? Now this code is going to be a little long, but again, we don't need to remember all of it. We can just look at the parts that we understand. So let me just open a website. The code is already there, so we can just select this from sub all the way till end sub. Control C, come back to VBA, developer, macros, sorry, Visual Basic. I will put it in a new module. And what do we do now? We simply run this code and let's see what happens. Developer, macros, and I click on run, create table of content, and just see how interesting this is. In one click, it automatically creates a list of all the sheets for you with a hyperlink for every sheet. Right? And imagine if you had 100 sheets, it would have worked even then. Right? Any questions? Right? So I hope you're able to see that getting codes from the internet is very simple, right? So if you are wondering, but why did I give you the example of counter and I is equal to 1 to 10, if we can simply copy codes from the internet. See, you might be able to get a code on the internet. It might do 90% of what you want. But that final change that you need to make can only be done when you're, when you have the ability of understanding the code, right? So it's not that simple. If it was that simple, then every Excel user would have learned how to use Visual Basic. Yeah. So see, this is a standard code, everyone. Do you want to see how we can make some changes on it? I'll just see. Like right now, what is happening is that it is putting my table of content in A1, and it is also showing me a list of it gives me a list of all the sheets. But do you see that this autofit is not working? I have to do this manually, everyone. Why don't I add that piece of code? So I will again go online and I'll say VBA code to autofit column. Just open any link. It says worksheets columns.autofit. So I can just copy this, come back to my code window. And after this entire code is run, I can just put this autofit. And we know the sheet is called table of contents. And we only want to run it on column A, nothing else, right? See the difference, everyone. Now, when I run my code, what will happen is it will also autofit my column. So do you see how smart this is? Now, the problem is that the zoom level is very small. It's set at 100%. Now, ideally, you want that when a person opens the file, it should be set at like this, like 175%, for example. So how do you do this? You again go online, you say VBA code to set zoom level. Very simple. It says active window.zoom is equal to 56. No, this is for the window. Okay, this one. I think this should work. Let's see. So we come back, we can say 175. I'm not sure if this is the correct one, but let's see. So let me minimize this, run the macro once again, create table of content and run. And did you see, everyone? It automatically made it 175%. How cool is that, right? So this is how you first see, as a good financial modeler or as a good developer, whichever area you're working in, you first need to have good logic. You need to understand your business process. What are the different steps inside the business process? You have to put it on a piece of paper, and then you start to search for ways of automating it. Searching is not really that difficult, and building a code is also not really that difficult. But if you don't know what you want to do, then of course nobody can help. I'll tell you what I do. So for example, whenever I'm working on a project, I don't write the code here. All I'm showing you is how I define my entire process in the organization. Is not in the organization, but in an Excel file. So do you see this? I've actually copied a screenshot of my Excel and I've written where does the first number come? This is a financial dashboard. Where does the first number come? I find the minimum, I find the maximum, then I find the minimum actual, the value factor, then I multiply them. From those two cells, where is the calculation going? And you know how this helps me? This helps me understand what is it that I'm doing. Otherwise, for a complicated process, you will get utterly lost and you will not even remember half of what you were expected to do. With small codes like this, it's very simple. But when requirement becomes a little more challenging and complicated, then it makes sense to create these process flows. Right? So I just like to write all my steps, a simple diagram. You can even do it in PowerPoint like this. So I said that if you notice, it said, go to sheet 1, select BH, then copy the data from tower schedule sheet, select G10 and L row. Do you see this? I showed you L row earlier as well. Then select column 2, then paste the data here, check another sheet, and then one by one you can see the entire process. This is very, very useful, but at the same time, it is also very important at times because without doing all this, you will get utterly lost, right? So no good developer will ever write a code just like that. You will always prepare a process like this because that will help you a lot. And as you can see, I do this with every single project that I work on. Right? The website is free. It's called Lucidchart, Lucidchart. But on the free version, you are limited to only creating 3 such processes. I'm using the paid version right now. But I mean, basic processes you can do on PowerPoint as well. Right. Okay. Any questions, anyone? Okay, so tomorrow we're going to do more advanced examples, but today the last topic that I want to cover is to tell you how you can, um, uh, we'll do recording of macro tomorrow, but I want to show you how you can create a user form. And then when we do recording macro, we'll also learn how to run a macro using user forms. Today it's a simpler example. So let me just make a new sheet. And here is my requirement. Earlier, we said the stop and the start number should come in input boxes. Remember, we do the same example, but this time I want to show a user form. A user form looks like this. So you get a form like this, and rather than the user putting numbers one by one in both the input boxes, I can put it at the same time. So it makes, like, whenever you see on the web, whenever you're filling a form, we are creating a similar form on Excel here, right? Okay, watch this. So the first thing I want to do is to go back to our code window, and then we will insert not a module, but a user form, the first one. So it creates a blank user form. Now we want to make some changes. We want to make it look a little better. So the first thing is I want to change this name, but I can't change it directly. I'll have to go to properties. So I'll say that this form is called create serial numbers, like this. Okay. After this, we also want to change the color. So we can go to back color and I can choose any color I want. So I choose a color like this. Right? Now I want to create 2 text boxes so that the user can choose the start and the end number. So I'll just open up my toolbox. If you accidentally close it, the button is here. Right? So you can open the toolbox. In the toolbox, we have a number of different elements. So I can select my text box, this one, and just drag it inside once, and then just copy and paste it one more time. Okay. What are the name? This is called text box 1. This is called text box 2. But the name doesn't really make any sense, so I'll change it. I'll call the first one as txt txt underscore start, which is my start num. And then the second one becomes txt and then stop num. Now, how do we explain to the user what these two boxes are? We can make a label. This A, the label is just a label. It just says something. So I'll change the label color so that it looks a little better. Wonderful. And we can change the caption to say, enter start number, like this. Okay. And then let me just move it a little to the right. You can move this one as well. Excellent. We can just copy and paste this, and then this becomes enter stop number. But then how do you run this? Like earlier we were pressing F5, but now you need something. Like if I open the form, the user can put 5 and 10, but then how does he confirm that input? We need a submit button. So we also have to create a command button. It's called a command button here, like this, and I'll call this submit. And then I'll change the name and I'll call this CMD. Like text box is txt, I'm writing CMD. I'm saying CMD submit. So we are done, right? But where does the code come? Now the code will not come in a module because we have created a user form. The code will come within the user form. So if you notice, I'm in my user form 1 right now. I will double click on this command button. And then I'll say that when a user clicks on the command button, so when the user is clicking on the command button, something should happen. What should happen? Watch this. For I is equal to, think about it, start number to end number. But my start number is text.startNum.value to text.stop text underscore stop num dot value. Okay, so this is equal to I. Let me just make sure why I'm not able to put a small I. That's very peculiar. I don't have any idea why I can't do a small I. Okay, only I is not working. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me put it as J. So we say for J is equal to start num to stop num. I want to go to cells, same as earlier. We say J comma 1 dot value is equal to start num. Sorry, is equal to J, and then I finally say next J. Let's see if it works or not. I think it should. Everything is correct. So I press F5, the serial number user form appears. Start number is 5, stop number is 10, and then I click on submit. Or in fact, for now, let me keep it simpler. We make it 1 and 10. Submit, and it gives me 1 to 10. If I make it 14, it gives me 1 to 14. Fair enough. But there's a problem. The problem is that when the numbers are coming, it is not deleting the older ones. First problem. The second problem is when the box is open, after the numbers are there, the box doesn't close on its own, which I want to happen. And the third problem is that when the user form is open, I can't select anything on my sheet, which is very irritating, right? So let's fix all of these things. The first thing I do is I will make sure that after the code runs, I'm closing the form. So I can say unload me. Basically, unload me says that you're closing yourself, as in you're closing the user form. You can also write the user form name. You can say user form 1 is the same thing. You can either say unload me. In fact, I'll give you both the options, or you can say user. You can say unload me. Right? Let's see how this works. So when the user puts 5 and whatever, 15, what will happen? The form will automatically close. So we have solved the first problem. The second problem is that when the form is open, the user was not able to select anything on the cells. For this, we have to change a property. The property is called, this one called show modal, right? This one. You notice that is set to true. I'll have to make this false. What is the difference? The difference is when the form opens, I can select my cells and work on the form at the same time. Right? It's a very small change that you need to make, but more often than not, you would want to make this change. Okay, and the final problem was that the user had to also remove the first column before running view serial numbers. I want the first column to become blank before the command is run. We have already done this earlier. So I can just go to my previous module, just copy this clearing of column 1 and put it in my user form. Right? That's it. The problem is, how do you make the form open on the workbook? Like, there is no button that opens this up. No? So what we'll do is, first I'll create a shape. But then what do I assign the macro? There is no macro which is opening the form. So the first thing is I have to create a macro that will open the form. So I'll create one more module in which I simply say sub show form. Okay. And I say user form one dot show. What is the role of this one line of code? This one line will open the form. Once the form is open, then you can make any changes you want to it. So right click, assign macro, and then you say show form. So what happens? Now when I click on this button, the form will open up. Fair enough. I can still select everything. I will put 1 and 10. And if you notice, it gives me 1 to 10. I'll again click. It says 1 to 5. And if I press submit, it says 1 to 5. Right. Right. Any questions on this, anyone? I'll just open the code window once again. So we created a user form. The beautification is completely up to you. You can create as many elements as you want to. Like if you search online, you'll find crazy examples of VBA user forms that have been created. Look at this, right? So fundamentally, it's the same thing. There is an OK and there's a reset button. And you can create as many complicated, you can literally create entire software using Visual Basic. Excellent. Questions, anyone? So I think we've done quite a lot. We saw how a macro can be saved in an XLAM. In an XLSM, it should not be an XLSX. A code starts with a subroutine, which is sub. The code name cannot have a space in it. The code will come in a module. Once you write the code, the autocorrecting works on its own. So if you notice, even if I make the I small, when I go to the next line, the I automatically becomes capitalized. So this is very smart, so this allows you to make small mistakes here and there, and the code at least fixes the spelling mistakes, not the spelling mistakes, but the cases for you. Then we did a basic code, which was serial number. We write a comment by putting an apostrophe, which is green in color, and we created a loop by saying for I is equal to 1 to 5, right? Then I kept on refactoring, so I kept on improving my code. My second code had my stop number inside a cell, range E2. My third code used an input box so that the user can decide what should be the stop number. And my final code had 2 input boxes, one for the start number, one for the end number. Why did we keep the J? Remember, because we wanted to make sure that the user can choose any number as a start, not just 1 to 15, but 15 to 25 as well. Right? When you practice this, you will understand better. Then I showed you how you can copy codes from the internet by simply typing VBA code 2. We did a couple of codes. We did unhiding all the sheets, which was this one. And then I showed you that there are different codes available in unhiding a sheet. And there are 4 or 5 codes available on the website. You can copy all of them. And then I showed you table of content can be created as well. And then we created a user form. The advantage of a user form that this is obviously the best way of running a macro. This is the most beautiful user experience that you can possibly create. All right. Excellent. So I don't want to start with the next topic today. I have also told you that you can type VBA 100 on Google and you will get a list of 100 codes available. I'll also share lots of other free codes with you at the end of our 3-day session. The agenda for tomorrow is that we will make this a little more complicated. But before we do that, we will see how we can record a macro, right? Because if I ask you that on a sheet, I did some tasks, For example, I put 1, I made 1 to 5, then I selected column B, I changed the color, and then I went at the end and I put a sum function. Now, why am I doing all these tasks every single time? Why don't I record these actions so I can perform the same action next time? This button is called record macro. So it says each of the command that we perform can be saved so I can replay them over and over and over again, right? It's a big topic. It will require us 1 hour to understand it. So this is something that I'll cover tomorrow. Okay? But remember, Visual Basic and macros are interchangeable. A macro is a generic word that refers to any programming macro, and a VB is the language on which Microsoft Office works. Right. Excellent. So that would be all for today. I'm saving the file. We'll continue working on the same file. If you have any queries, you can ask. See, user form are used everywhere, Abhinav, and for everybody's reference, just watch this. Guys, will you give me 1 second? There's something wrong with my add-ins. Actually, never mind. I'll check this later. No problem. I'll show you some user forms that I've created. So VBA, and look at some part. So this entire form that you see, which is a survey form, I can click on proceed. I can put in my employee details. I can put in my numbers. I can select the reporting manager. So there are 5 parts to this question. I can just select all these buttons, right? I can put anything in this box. And then this entire form has been created on VBA. And then what does it do? When the entire result is submitted, it says thank you, and the results are saved in this, right? In an Excel. So imagine rather than asking a user to fill up a boring Excel like this, I asked them to do this in the form of a user form. It will be one more example. So here the client had a problem where they had an MIS and they wanted to see the employee tracker on a form. So right now, all the employee details are like this. It's so irritating. No? How do you view one employee if you want to? It's just the entire organization database. So I created a form which looks like this. Right? So you can actually see the employee details on a form. And if you want to see further details about performance, you can click on another form and it shows you how the employee has performed in the last 1 year. So you can see the scores and everything. Right? So this entire form can be created on Visual Basic. So primarily used in finance or in HR, right? That's where most of the time VBA would be used. Fundamentally, it's the same thing. The form that I showed you now, it had 2 text boxes. This has 50 text boxes. Otherwise, everything works the same way. Right? Excellent. So I think we can pack up for today. I will be sharing the recording with you in some time, maybe another 30-40 minutes. Please make sure before tomorrow's session, it's just a 2-hour recording. You can even fast forward. Please make sure to watch it. I'm not asking you to practice it because you won't have time. And don't practice because I want you to cover all the 3 days before practicing. But make sure to at least fast forward and watch so that, when you look at it one more time, then you understand it better, right? Because tomorrow we're going to ramp up the difficulty. It's going to become more complicated. So I want to make sure that your learning is a little better than what you learned today, right? Excellent. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.